Okay, so I have the microphone, and I'm going to hand it off, then I'm going to go turn the lights on. So anyone have a question? Oh, you have a question, okay.
I'm sorry, mine has nothing to do with the fundraising, but have you ever considered doing things like community outreach, like a Plymouth paint out, a plein air painters thing? I mean, we have historic towns, beautiful. We have the Michigan plein air painters that live all around here. And we have the facility, which would be the park, where you would host the judging, the jurying, and it would just be a way to get more regular people into the art. They get excited about seeing the artists around town. And it's very, very popular in Dexter, other areas around here.
Yeah, our model has been primarily to act as a landlord and to try to get these kinds of groups to come in and operate out of our facility. We aren't staffed to run programs like that, but even things like the DIA Inside Out program last summer, where we had the exhibits from the DIA. But the DIA had to do a lot of the heavy lifting as far as getting the art and display and the rest, and we did the promotion. But we don't, we have to really stick to our model of being a landlord. But I'll tell you what, anybody wants to do that, we will be about as accommodating as you can be. So I would encourage them to come and see us if there are groups that would like to take that on.
Yeah, hi. I know some of the people from the township felt that the millage, might be a little aggressive, a little uncertainty about whether we needed the theater or not, and all the improvements at once seemed a little large. The question is well, why wouldn't, or would there be an opportunity, say in a year or two, to go back and, with a more reasonable plan like you've outlined, and essentially, I think you'd get a lot of support for it.
Well, let me tell you, early on we had two options. One was this one you saw today. And the feedback we got is there's no way that they're going to put $7, $8, $9 million into that school and have to raise $200,000, $250,000 a year for continuing operating costs. And it was the operating costs that were really difficult in this package. So we had a choice. Do we go with this package, or do we go with the one with the theater that was self-sustaining? That would generate the revenue, and we have plenty of independent outside expertise on this. Would have been no operating costs in the future. So if we're looking at the upfront costs of $8, $9 a month for the whole package, or let's say $5 a month just for the school, but would include $250,000 a year of subsidy over a long period of time, all the feedback suggested you got to go with the theater. You will never sell ongoing subsidy costs for this project. Now that was 4 or 5 years ago, okay? But we're taking that feedback, and I guess, and we felt that the theater would be a tremendous addition to the community, but financially it was necessary. You see what we're facing now. I don't know, you're starting from square one and you're looking at $250,000 deficits every year. Thank God we got a building that's full of tenants right now, which helps a little bit. But if you had an empty building and facing the prospect, it would have been more than $250. That's a tough call. But I appreciate the question.
I'd like to add a comment.
Yeah.
And part of the issue that we have is that the time is now. I mean, losses have been incurred. We got to get going. To do another millage, that's more time. And I just got to tell you, if you'd been on our side of going through that millage, you would have zero appetite, Myron, or anybody, to deal with that again. That was not fun. It had little to do with losing. It's all the crapola that came along with it. And I'll tell you, I, for one, got no stomach for it. And I think we have a way now to do it in our own control. There are enough people who did support it, and I think will support it, that we can make this work and not have to subject good people to that bad stuff that happened before. I personally wouldn't go through it. I wouldn't go through it again, and I wouldn't have been in favor of having the community foundation put the property in because of what happened along those lines. And sorry, and sorry if people don't like when I tell the truth of how I feel.
My question, though, is regarding the 10 acres. Is there a timeline or a time when that's going to become necessary to sell that part?
Go ahead. You can have that one.
Again, the timing is now. It'll be a long process, right? Nothing like that in that location with as big a deal as it'll be going through the city process will happen, boom, like that. Is it a year? Is it 2 years that it takes to work its way through? That's why we have to start sooner rather than later. And that's why, if there is, and I hope there will be a grassroots, some kind of effort, to try to keep that property, in the community and used, be it for recreational purposes or whatever. The time is now. We did meet with some of city management yesterday. They get it now. They understand what's coming. Certainly they're interested. They don't have money. This is going to be a collective community effort. We've been able to save part of it. Now it's going to take another effort to save the rest, or it will be sold.
Yeah,
Two questions.
Just a quick one, comment on that. We really got to get moving on it. I mean, if somebody's got ideas, let's hear them. But we're not going to sit around for a year or two waiting for something to happen. We've got to take the initiative. That building needs a whole lot of help, and it needs it now. And we've already been at it for 3 years, and so we'll be pressing ahead.
Two questions. One along that lines. Is there an estimated price tag for the property? Have you any appraisals done? Just interested.
No, it was important. Again, we didn't have an agreement. We didn't have a real path forward until January 2nd, right? 2 weeks ago. In the meantime, then, the priority for us was to talk to the tenants, staff. We only talked to the city yesterday. Now the public's hearing it. We sure as heck didn't talk to any real estate people before we talked with the public. That will happen promptly from here, but until we go through that, we don't know what their appraisal or estimate will be.
The second question is, what is the plan for soliciting the donations? I know that we're here, and I have a handful of people that said, oh, make sure you call me and tell me or text me what's going on because I can't make it here tonight. But is there a plan to do the postcards? Because I know I have a lot of older neighbors that don't really get out, don't use the internet, and I stop by, talk to them, but is there a plan to do a postcard drive, at least for the city of Plymouth, potentially?
We've got a whole series of activities. Obviously all the website and Facebook and Twitter activities. You may have seen articles in the last week in the Observer and the Eagle. We'll be continuing virtually every means. We're looking at doing some direct mailing campaigns, although I got to say we haven't had a great response out of those in the past. It is getting tougher and tougher to communicate with people in the community. We found that out during the campaign and during the fundraising efforts that we've had. People just don't tune into, a lot of people don't, into the media that we have access to promote. So, it's you keep pushing it over and over and over, but it's hard to reach everybody. It really is. We'll be everywhere, but everywhere doesn't get to everybody.
The part I have to, unfortunately, emphasize is that we're at a point here where we're trying to save Park. We've done what we can. We have to get, frankly, what the market will bear for that property. If we designate it for community use or as green space, we don't get the money to set up the rainy day fund. We don't get the money to improve the building. In fact, we fail in making Park viable. And then we put, again, the building and everything at risk. So absolutely want to have happen exactly what you said, but we have to maximize the value we can get for that property. And again, it's going to take probably a good Samaritan, individuals, and or a foundation who will do it, really out of their goodness of their heart for the benefit of the community. I dare say we've tried to do what we can to save the building, to save all those good organizations at Park, and now it's going to be for the rest of the community to step up and deal with this remaining piece of property.
I've been in the park a number of times, and I'm just wondering why we had this meeting at the Penn Theater when we have all the activities and being able to see the park firsthand for all of us. Some of the people may not have been to the park.
Well, we're open 7 days a week and have been 3.5 years, and anyone can come in there at any time. This venue, we really don't have a good venue, and that was part of the problem. We can do it at the park, you do it in the cafeteria and the like. And we've done countless presentations there and tours like this. I think this is the third time we've done them at the Penn over about a 4-year period of time since 2013. A more comfortable venue. I think we can focus people's attention a little more, but anybody who wants a tour at any time, come and see us. We'll give you a tour. There's no limits to that.
Oh, hi. I would like to hear a little bit more about the proposed theater in the cafeteria, did you say?
Well, it was the old cafeteria in the middle school, and we've kind of made a makeshift theater out of it that we've been operating from. It'll currently handle about 300 people just with stacking chairs on a flat floor, and I mean, you know, it's a compromise at very best. And we really want to, particularly now, I want to do a proper theater that'll handle about 180 to 200. It's smaller, obviously smaller, but you know, we got to work with the existing facility. And it's tough, and some of our tenants, you know, they want bigger facilities, and that's why we need a larger one, but that's just not possible anymore. So we want to make sure we've got a really nice, high-end, 200-seat facility that is very accommodating.
Question about the theater building. Have you looked at the possibility of building a different kind of building, say something of the order of a field house, that could also be used as a theater with some minor conversion, so that it could be used for multiple things, not just a theater?
Well, no, I can't say we have, but it's pretty tough. If you want to have a theater similar to this, but larger, and being able to accommodate that can be somewhat difficult. And I'm not sure the resistance that we got for the big theater would necessarily go away because if we had a multi-purpose theater. I mean, they're talking about traffic. They're talking about they don't want a big building on that site. We get into a whole variety of things, not, you know, and then the taxes and any increase whatsoever. I don't know how that would convince township voters, and not city. Would township voters go along with something like that when they wouldn't go along with this?
Just an idea that a building could be used. Just the idea that the building could be used for additional things besides just a theater.
But I had commitments for 165 days in that theater. Okay? You couldn't put any more. You couldn't put any other stuff in whatever building. And, you know, is the DSO going to play in that building? Will it be a county or Michigan Opera Theater or Michigan Philharmonic and the kind of organizations? It becomes a compromise when we get into that. I had commitments for 165 days. And if we would we were looking at turning a, quote, profit, a non-profit, or the contribution to the entire project ranging $300,000 to $400,000 a year because of those days. And the voters turned it down. So I'm not sure how much further you can go with that and convince them. I can't tell you how many people I talked to that said, oh, it's just that theater. I said, how much would it cost you? Well, $10 a month. If it had been $5 or $6 a month for this, would you have voted for it? Well, no. Okay, well, all right, then it wasn't a theater.
Good evening, Don. I moved to Plymouth Township from Ann Arbor, thinking, because I worked at Ford Motor Company, thinking that it's a nice cultural town. But I was surprised at the results of the election that they would not support cultural activities. Do the township people know that it is not only for them, but also for their children and their grandchildren, for their cultural and other growth?
Well, I certainly can't speak for them. We certainly heard enough from them during the campaign. And there were a variety of issues. I mean, there are people with no taxes, period. No new taxes, don't care what it's for. There are others that do not believe taxpayers should be involved in arts and recreation. Those that want it, let them pay for it. Don't make me pay for somebody else's entertainment. So you had it's not just one thing. Certainly the tax issue, the misrepresentations on the tax issue confused a lot of people. I mean, probably the one thing that caused more damage to the campaign than anything else was going to raise your taxes $2,800 a year. $2,800. Well, that was over 20 years. Everybody believed that was per year. And I had them lined up in my office in tears. I love PARC. I want the project. We need the theater, but I can't afford $2,800 a year. Over 20 years, and they hammered away on it and hammered away on it, and that hurt the campaign a lot. Whether it would have made a difference, I don't know, but that certainly was disappointing. And that's a $40 million theater. Yeah, right. It was a $12 million theater, and then a lot of money went into renovating the school and all the rest of the stuff associated with the campaign. But it stuck, and it worked. I mean, a lot of people thought it was a $40 million theater and it was going to cost them $2,800 a year. And they were relentless on that and very effective.
I just want to add some comments to that if I can. Yeah, I don't like the way the millage turned out. But remember, all we ever asked for was a chance to let the voters decide. The voters decided. You know, that part's done. And while we didn't get a performing arts center, guess what? We just talked about tonight is we've got everything else, which has a heck of a lot of culture with it. Yeah, that's the part that we don't have, maybe that we're focusing on. I'll just suggest that, you know, let's take the positive in what the heck has been saved and what will be able to grow. I've shared with fellow board members my expectation, and write this down and remember it. 10 years from now, it'll probably take that long to fix it up. By the way, this is what, 12th to 13th year, Ellen, for the pen, that has been progressively improved. PARC is going to be spectacular over time. People are going to be figuring out how in the heck does the Plymouth do what it did? How do they save this old school? How do they get all this culture in when it's hard everywhere? And there are going to be people from around the country trying to follow what the heck happened here. It's that good. That's what we have. And yeah, I feel bad about the part that's gone, but it's gone. And I suggest to everybody do what we can, jump on board and feel good about what we have going forward, because it's going to be really, really good.
First of all, I want to thank you for the very clear and translucent presentation that you made. Number one, while I was watching the presentation, I got confused. Could you please explain? I saw Community Foundation and I saw the Wilcox Foundation. Are those two separate entities?
Yes.
Can you explain who or what is the Community Foundation?
The Community Foundation is the Community Foundation of Southeast Michigan, or for Southeast Michigan. They have been around a long time. They're a very large foundation. They take contributions. They support a lot of nonprofit organizations over the years. They are totally independent, standalone organization. The Wilcox Foundation, and they're regional. They're throughout southeastern Michigan. The Wilcox Foundation is really the rest of Jack Wilcox inheritance and foundation. He formed a foundation, and it's managed by Dan Harriman, you saw up here earlier, Win Schrader, he used to be Schrader Funeral Home, and with Scott Dodge. And those three guys are responsible for managing Jack's foundation. And they've done a great job on it. You may have heard they were involved with the fountain again, which has been kind of up and down and all around. They've done a tremendous amount of good. Totally unrelated, two totally different foundations. Both nonprofits, but separate. Who owns what? Who owns the property? The PARC property you're talking? Yeah, PARC. PARC owns it. We're a 501c3, we own it. It's an asset, it's on our balance sheet. It's an asset. PARC owns that asset. And the Community Foundation of Southeastern Michigan donated that property back to Park. It had been, the Malcolms had donated it to the foundation, the community foundation. And the intent was it was to go to the authority when the millage passed. Well, when the millage didn't pass, it kind of threw a monkey wrench in the works. So the community foundation donated it back to Park, but in order for them to fulfill their fiduciary responsibility, they had to make sure they were donating it to an entity that would be viable, financially viable. And that, you know, they can't be donating a $3-4 million asset to an organization and then have the asset go belly up, and it looked pretty silly doing that. So they have to really do their homework and make sure, and that's what we're going through for a couple of months.
It's not really a question as much as I want to thank you guys for all you've done. Don, I've seen you in your car over there pretty much every day. Mark, we know what you guys have done, so I just want to say thank you on behalf of us.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's been a lot of goodwill and a lot of great things done in the last few years, particularly by you and everybody else. I was just wondering, like every Friday night, all summer we have 1,000 or a few thousand people show up, for the music in the park to kind of keep the momentum alive of what's going on, as well as maybe a little bit of a fundraising as well. I wonder if it'd be possible, like if at the band concerts, someone basically said, thanks for whoever's sponsoring the music, and by the way, if you enjoy the music, consider contributing, to the park. And it may generate, besides just the money aspect, the ongoing good things that are happening and the goodwill, that could lead to other things down the line.
Good idea. Yeah. A good idea, and we've got a great relationship with the community band. They've done a number of concerts in our facility, in the gymnasium. We do one every year. They team up with the Michigan Philharmonic as well, doing joint concerts. So, we'd like to do more with them, and maybe there's some opportunities to do things like that.
Okay, we're done. I think that's about it. Anybody else? Last questions? Nope.
Okay, thanks again for coming. It means a lot.